the podcast nowhere near Hollywood. It's Afternoon Coffee with Mike and Tim.
Hey, that was good. What I was thinking was maybe welcome to the Afternoon Coffee Podcast with Mike and Tim.
Nice try, boys, but this is how it should sound. This is the Afternoon Coffee Podcast with Mike and Tim.
Well, welcome back to part 2 of our interview with Jennifer Ervig, author and Connections pastor at the Grove Church in Metro Seattle. So without any further ado, here we go.
Say, Jen, tell us about your ministry there at Connections, at the Grove Church, your Connections pastor. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a pastor at, depending on where you get your statistics and church statistics, we're a large to very large church. We can only fit a medium-sized people, though. So,
Of
so we
course.
have had 4 services every Sunday morning before this pandemic, because we see about 1,300, 1,500, including kids, come through the doors every Sunday, but probably over 2,000 call our church home.
Oh,
And
wow.
so
Very nice.
we're about 30 minutes north of Seattle, and we are an AG church with a non-denominational feel, 8 pastors on staff. We actually have a Snohomish campus as well. And so my job as the Connections pastor is really just to connect people, whether to serving, life groups, anything you might need to connected to. I'm the welcoming committee. I used to joke at Pizza with the Pastors that I would be your dating service. If you're here shopping for that mate, I'll hook you up. But no, I don't do that. But no, any other part of Connections, that's my job.
That's a service over and above normally. I think
Over
so,
and
yeah.
above.
So, Jen, what makes a person, when they first come into your church, or that makes them feel, what's the best way to make a person feel welcome? Is it, just tell us, what's the best way?
Sure, you've got to notice them. And what I want church people to really understand is that is not the sole job of your pastoral staff. If you call your church home and that is your church family, you need to take ownership, and you need to come hang out in the lobby, 10 minutes before service starts or whatever, and look for people that you've never noticed before. And in a large church, it can be hard because even as a pastor, I've introduced myself like, have I met you before? Oh yeah, I've been coming here 2 years. Oh my goodness. Because you just miss them sometimes.
Then
But,
everybody feels
be
bad.
willing to embarrass yourself, maybe look stupid, forget names, but you need to notice people and let them know that they belong there when they feel like they don't. Surely they don't. And now that church is online mostly, same thing goes for that. Jump onto that live video during the virtual lobby and just start chatting it up with people. That's how people feel like they belong.
Oh, good. Very good. And what about having refreshments? Do you have that as people come in, or?
Oh, yes. I mean, cookies, because cookies are from Jesus. Like,
Oh,
yes, we need that little bit of heaven in the lobby. Cookies, free coffee, and then, of course, the paid cafe that supports all our missionaries. Yes, definitely.
Yes.
But now you're a certified coach also. How does that lead into what you do?
Oh, my goodness. I highly encourage people to look into coaching because it can help in all areas of life, whether your work or your parenting, your friendships. So coaching is just a way of communicating with people and helping people think about their own situations and come up with the ideas on their own by crafting questions that just help them think. Now, my thing about coaching is it has been given a bad name by all the, I don't know, Fruit Loops out there. Like you'll see on Facebook, you'll see become a coach for $20. That's not real coaching. You
wouldn't
want
think.
to be, so the Assemblies of God, they have coaching classes that are legit, and they pattern theirs. I'm totally brain farting right now. They pattern theirs after the International Coaching Federation, ICF. Yes, that's correct. ICF is the real deal. So you could either look up ICF or Assemblies of God coaching, and that will teach you how to really help people and even yourself, just with having organic conversations with people where you craft questions without putting thoughts in their head, but helping them think. And it is amazing how people can get past obstacles in their life or finally find the answer they've been looking for years just because somebody asked them the right questions.
Yeah, because sometimes you're not thinking in the way of, you're not interrogating yourself. You're just kind of like, sometimes you just get stuck. It's
Exactly.
like a rut in the road, and you can't really see that all you got to do is put some sand down and you can get out of it or whatever. Yep.
Exactly.
It's very good. Very good. Now there's a point here. So do we have there's a question on here. It's actually, I'm cheating. It's a sample question, and it says, "Do we have the rights as believers to be happy?" What's your take on that?
Oh my. Yes. Do we have the right to be happy? Yes and no.
Hmm.
Um, you have the right to be happy in how God intended creation to go. But the fall of man took those rights away.
Right.
But Jesus, offers reconciliation. And one of my favorite lines is Jesus doesn't care about your happiness if your joy is at stake. And what I mean by that is Jesus is happy if you're happy. He wants you to be happy. God wants you to be happy. But there are more important things. Happiness is so surface level and it's
Mm,
circumstantial. And
that's
and
exactly
God
right.
offers this joy that is unexplainable, that is present with a peace and a smile in the midst of even the darkest times. And I can say that from experience, from the things I've been through, like my brother's death and the loss of my best friend. She just totally turned her back on me,
Mm,
and my anxiety and other things I've been through. Joy is what you really want. So who even cares if you have the right to happiness, which you do, and you'll get that someday if you trust God and hold on to his joy.
sure. It's like a roller coaster ride. I was going to go with that because you're joy and happy is, I think they're mutually exclusive, because happy, I heard somebody say this, I didn't come up with this, but somebody said that happy is, the root word for happy is happenstance. So it's whatever is going on around you is what makes you happy.
Yeah.
Somebody tells you a joke, you laugh, you're happy. But when you're going through life's crap sandwiches, I mean,
Yeah.
you're not happy. I mean,
No.
I went over to, it's 15 years ago now, went over to visit my mother one morning after work. I was working night shift. I got over there and she was dead on the couch.
Oh my.
Mm,
Certainly a crap sandwich,
yeah.
and it's like, so you can't say that you're happy at that point, but the joy is still in you because you're not freaking out. You're just kind of like, you just kind of, you move on, or you deal with it in small bites incrementally. And I really think there's just a huge difference between joy and happy. I heard, there's a pastor I listened to in Southern California, Greg Laurie, and he talks about, he thinks it's funny that the Declaration of Independence talks about our pursuit of happiness. He says, I just think that just cracks me up. A pursuit. What does that even look like? A pursuit of happiness. If you pursue happiness, are you not missing the point? Why don't you just pursue a good life, or make good choices, and then happiness will come.
Yeah. No, I love
True.
that. A pursuit of happiness doesn't make any sense because, like you said, it's happenstance. So you're just you're gonna pursue those perfect circumstances that
And
make
you're
you
always
happy.
gonna
That's ridiculous.
you're gonna
Whereas
be
joy looks
disappointed.
toward, the only reason joy works is because of hope. And so it's
Yes.
always something, what you put your faith in, a hope that's before you, is why you can pursue joy.
Right.
And
And
that
so
makes
that
more
answers the
sense.
question already that I'm going to present to you is, and I lost my sister in 2011. She was 54, a godly woman, and we lost her to cancer. But it was obviously it was tough for you, tough for me to see our loved ones go. And Cheryl, she's had it's not for this program, but she had a tremendous testimony, and she loved the Lord and served Him. And so it's still hard for me. I think about it not daily, but it just hits my brain sometimes when I least expect it that Cheryl is actually gone. And so the point is, and you've answered it already, but I want to hear a little bit more. But what can somebody say to someone that has recently lost someone or just can't shake it that they have lost that loved one? And I know what not to say. Somebody told me this after Cheryl passed, and they said to me, and this is a believe it. He said this. It was a supervisor of mine. He said, "Tim, take off as much time as you need." He said, "But he said, I just want to say that I'm sorry that your sister passed on, but that's God's way of eliminating the population.
Oh.
And
Wow.
and so I
He's got a
you know what
big
I
heart,
said to
doesn't
him?
he?
I got in the flesh and I said his name and I said, and he was my direct supervisor. I said, I our conversation just ended,
Mm,
and I hung up on him.
You
And
handled
he didn't
that
like that.
very well.
you did.
Yeah.
Better than I would
Our
have.
conversation
I was
just
gonna
ended.
say, yeah.
So what can you say
Um,
to the person that is listening to this podcast that it's fresh in their minds and or maybe it was years ago and they just lost someone or they lost somebody years ago. What can you say to that individual?
sure. So definitely your answers and what you would say change on your relationship with them and whether they or the deceased are believers or not. But I think no matter the circumstance, what you can do is definitely avoid answers that share your opinions, like your supervisor did. I
Yes.
think what I find most helpful is when you talk about the deceased. Ask ask memories about them. A lot of people avoid this because they don't want to make the person who's missing them cry or upset, but that's the kind of upset that we crave. We want to know that you remembered our loved ones existed, that God created them, and
Mm,
that they were amazing people. So ask us about them. Share memories that you, if you knew them, share memories with us about them, because I know too, when my brother died, I wanted to know, because there's parts of my brother's life I didn't know. Like I didn't know his friends and coworkers when he was in the Marines on the other side of the country and stuff like that. So I wanted to hear from anybody who ever encountered him at any point in life. That
sure.
brings me comfort. So talk about the
Mm.
deceased, ask about the deceased um, in a curious way. Don't worry about making tears come. They will come, but they're the kind of tears that the grieving invite.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thank
That's
you
so
for that.
tough. You never want to make anybody cry. I mean, for me, that's just, I never want that. Nothing breaks my heart more than seeing my wife cry or back in the day, seeing my mother cry when I was younger. It's like the last thing you ever want to see, especially a woman. You see a guy cry, it's like, well, you got something really is going on here. But I don't know, and I don't mean to make it sound that way, but normally a guy, it takes a little bit for them to cry in front of anybody
Yeah.
else. Um, and for whenever I've seen my wife cry, it breaks my heart. It's like somebody just stomps my heart right through my chest, and it's like I hate that. So I
Hmm.
think that,
Yes.
that when you're dealing with, for me specifically, a female that's going through a hard time. My son and his wife just went through something here recently, and he goes, well, I just don't know what to say. She went through a loss, and I said, don't say anything, just sit there and be with her. Whatever she
Yeah.
wants to talk about, talk.
Yep.
And so far so good. I mean, it's been a couple of weeks now, but yeah, gee, that's just me.
So you have here that you worked as a ghost blogger for an SEO. Share with us what that's about.
So yeah, I have a friend who does they, they um they have an SEO business, and so the way that works is you're helping website optimization for all kinds of different companies, lots of real estate, maybe paintballing, or maybe the a little bit for the government parks or something, or we even did a fire Bible at one point. And so when you ghost blog for them, you need to write blogs that will optimize their website, but in their voice. And so it can be very difficult because you don't want to be inauthentic or lying. So lots of research involved with that. Any of the Christian ones were easy because, that's we all should
Speak
be
the
relying
same
on the Holy
language.
Spirit to help us with that anyway. But
Yeah.
yeah, I learned a lot about real estate in those days, and doing just lots of research to make it sound like I worked for their company and was writing their
Oh,
blogs.
very good. So you were a
Well,
paid liar. I love it.
well, it's kind of like when you and I audition for stuff, Tim. That it's you're playing a role, and I
Oh,
see
you
it the
are.
same
Yeah,
way. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
same thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. And so Mike and I had that conversation about SEOs. And if somebody
Just
puts you at
last
the
week.
top
Yeah.
of an SEO, then somebody else is at the top of the SEO in the same profession. How does that work? I mean, how long do you stay on top?
Well, that kind of stuff I don't really know. You're gonna have to ask the experts on that. I just wrote
Who
articles to
knows?
help.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think hardly anybody knows all that. I
Yeah,
think everything's based off of Google, and they keep changing their algorithm, and it doesn't really seem to
Exactly.
matter. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for being on. We appreciate you,
Jen, this has
and
been
good
great.
luck.
Same to you guys. You guys have a great day, all right?
All right, you
Thank you.
too.
Thank you for your time.
Well, that was fun. Jennifer's that was a fun interview. She's a
Yeah, it
nice
was.
lady. Yeah. Speaking of fun, well, let's look at what's not fun. Tim, tell us what's not fun.
Hey, folks, let me tell you what's not fun, and that is investing X number of dollars into your sound system, coming in the morning, and then it doesn't work. So Mike and I are trying to patch together. Mike's in another city, I'm in another city, and then it just doesn't work. So I'm scrambling and trying. So here we are on the telephone. So I got to make this work. That's an anxious moment. And how do we deal with that? And that's what we're going to be talking about for the balance of the program. Not only that, we're going to be interjecting some scripture into this as well. I've got some scriptures here that I'd like to share in a little bit. But yeah, Mike, yeah, that's an anxious moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anxiety is just something, and we talked to Jennifer about this, and anxiety is something that I still believe that men really deal with things a little bit differently. I know just, at least between my wife and I, we're very different as far as dealing with bad things that happen. Everybody has bad things that happen, but I think guys have an ability, and I don't know whether it's positive or negative, but we can put things in a box and put it on a shelf in the back of our brain and say, we'll get to that later. I have to do this now. And I don't
Yeah,
think women,
compartmentalize it. Yeah.
and it just seems like women just, my wife anyway, it's like when something is anxious or something's really bothering her, it's in the front of her brain and she can't move it. It's just there.
Yeah. And on the flip side, some guys fix it now. I'm kind of a fix it now kind of guy.
Yeah.
But if something's come up and I have to deal with something right then and there, as far as not the problem we're talking about that made me anxious, then I do have to compartmentalize and I'll deal with that later and then deal with what I'm dealing with right now, any problem. But the problem, the original problem, I've had to compartmentalize and put it back. And then we guys, we're that way.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so we can set it aside and then get back to it. But sometimes there are guys that want to fix it now. Maybe if it's somebody else that caused the problem, we want to try to fix it. But I don't know. It goes both ways. But yeah, you're 100% right. I would lean to what Mike said, and that is we compartmentalize it.
Yeah, yeah, to me, it's kind of an advantage to me because I can attack something else and try not to think about it. And the example I used is when my mom died. It's like I could sit there and just fall apart, and that would have been completely understandable. But I had to call my wife. I had to call the ambulance. I called. Did I ever tell you the story about that? This is another God thing that it was an incredible
Yeah.
situation. When I couldn't get in the front door and I saw my mom on the couch, I was kind of like, I knew right away. So we still had cell phones. This is back in 2005. Got my flip phone out and I called 911. Well, guess who is one of my friends from 1984, a friend of mine from the military. We lived in the same town together. Well, guess who's a 911 dispatcher that answered the phone for me when I needed somebody, a friend, somebody that kind of understood, somebody who knew my mom, that, he answered the phone. He's the guy who took my call. I mean, what are the chances? There's many people that work at that 911 center in Bartow County. I mean, he was the guy that answered the phone. I see that as a huge blessing from God, first of all. But second of all, I just needed to, I just needed to attack these things, and it kind of kept my mind busy, and it kept me, okay, this is what because everything had to shift. I just talked to her the day before and she was fine. So it's like I had to kind of shift my whole way of thinking around. It's like, she was 81, I think. So it's like I knew it was coming one day, but I didn't expect it that day. And we never expect it, when it's like that. But yeah, I mean, it was just one of those situations to where I had to take that little bit of grief that I was going through and tuck it in a box and put it in the back of my mind and say, I'll deal with that later. Of course, that box opens up sometimes when you least expect it. And it happened at her memorial. We had to, they have the pictures and everything that we had to gather and put up on the screen. They had this PowerPoint pictures of times when I was younger and all these kind of things of when of my mom. And of course, that box got opened up and got threw right out of my face with in the form of tears, which was a little embarrassing because it's embarrassing for a guy a lot of times. I just don't think it's a good thing for guys to show a lot of emotion. And like I said, maybe I'm just old fashioned, but I don't know.
Well, tears are a valve, and it lets us release that pressure. Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of anxiety, I just don't know how the world. And when I say the world, folks, I mean, if you're listening and you're not a believer in Jesus Christ, how the world handles anxious moments. And there's a scripture in the Bible that does cover that. And something that comes to mind is Matthew 6. It says, "Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more valuable than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his lifespan?" So we see in the scripture here, of course, that it's I think it's futile to worry about what may not and may happen. Just to see what happens. God is going to take care of us, and you think, well, yeah, that's cliche, but even with your mom in that situation, I want to hear more about that. But in your mom's situation, Mike, that when she passed, and you came up on her body, is that correct?
Yeah. She was in her apartment, and I couldn't get in the front door. The door was open, the screen door was locked, and she
Oh
was on the
my!
couch. She had died the night before watching TV.
Now, what a moment! That is just that. That is
It probably sounds worse than it is. I don't know. I don't know how else to look at it. I do know one thing, that Jennifer has this thing. It ties into where our priorities are in life. And her thing is, and we talked about this a little bit, and I never got to really ask her any more in depth, but Jesus doesn't care about your happiness when your joy is at stake. And that's really, really deep. And you really have to think about what she means by that. And, you look at, of course, I think we did talk about this, that happy, the root word of happy is happenstance. And it's one of those, it just happens to be where you are in life. You're standing outside at 75 degrees and sunny, the birds are chirping. That's happy. That's happenstance. It's because your surroundings are making you that way. But joy is something that comes from within. It's sort of like it's like your root system. If it's well fed and it's fertilized and the whole thing and everything is going well, it comes out from within like a well. I think what she's saying, and her and I have talked on social media since then, is that there are things that can be destructive to your overall joy that could make you happy. For example, let's say that you really wanted that new car, but it's $40,000 or $30,000 or whatever, and your budget really doesn't cover that, or you don't even think about your budget. You just go ahead and do it, and most people will just go ahead and give you the financing and drive it off the lot that day. It's a wonderful thing sometimes, and it makes you happy. Or you have a credit card, brand new credit card. It's got $20,000 credit limit. You run out and get $15,000 on it, just buying knickknacks and stuff. That it makes you happy that day. But man, a month from now, when that bill comes in, it affects your joy, because now it's affecting because now you're seeing the big picture when you finally get that bill. So I think with all that, I think that your joy could really be adversely affected when you focus on being happy instead of focusing on the joy and like you said, not worrying about what you're going to eat or what you're going to wear and all that kind of. Jesus really, there's so many gems in there that we kind of gloss over, that he's like, don't worry about stuff. God knows what you need, and you're going to be just fine. Don't worry about it. If you trust in him for your salvation, for the rest of eternity, we're trusting him for that. We can't trust him for, to be able to fill our bellies when we need to. I agree.
But yeah, you all need to take a look at her books. And Mike and I aren't getting any money out of this.
Oh, goodness.
We want to help. We want to help, and we want to help get the word out. And this is and I don't think it's just from a woman's perspective, Mike. This book,
No.
I think it helps men and women in their devotional book, as well. So, hats off to Jennifer for being on our program. We appreciate that, but allowing the Holy Spirit to work through her.
Sure.
And in writing this book.
And what I appreciate about her is she's extremely transparent. She wanted to kind of give her own experiences and how she's dealt with things with her brother and things in the past. And I felt really crappy for a while, and I felt like, where are you, God? And it's like we all feel that way, but a lot of times, especially in church atmospheres or whatever, we don't say that. We're not honest with ourselves or with our fellow believers or anybody else. I really think authenticity is probably why she's going to be going very far in her pursuits.
She's also a conference speaker as well. So that's good. And the book that I was referring to is As My Mind Unwinds, 31-Day Devotional. That's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. It's about everywhere. And look her up on Facebook, folks, as well.
Yeah, it's As My Mind Unwinds. That's her newest book. Her older book is called When My Mind Winds Up. It's another. That was her first book about anxiety as well. I believe the second one is made in like a 31-day devotional format. I really don't like ebooks, so we're gonna order this and have it come in physically so we can go through it. I think anybody could benefit from this. Like Tim said, it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and she does suggest that we go to smaller mom and pop bookstores and use them. I think that now more than ever, especially in this COVID-19 or post-COVID-19 time frame, they need the business more. It might cost you $1 more. It might not, but just go ahead. These people are in your community. I completely, and I know Tim absolutely agrees with this, that, our small businesses now more than ever need your support.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. They do. They got to keep it going. And so many of them are going under. And something kind of neat happened to one of our coffee shops the other day. This is off topic, but this is God's blessings, and certainly struggling. And I did a commercial for them, and they didn't ask, but I gave, and I wanted to make sure that you got the word out that they haven't stopped business. They're just trying to take a sabbatical. But a local church, and I didn't tell you this, Mike, but a local church yesterday or the day before gave them a check for $10,000. Our local coffee shop.
Oh, wow.
10 grand. And that is, hey, get back to where you need to be, get back on your feet, buy supplies, whatever you need, because we need this coffee shop in Ringgold. And so that's a blessing. And folks, again, if you're in the position to help and give someone, it may even be something as what insignificant as you think it may be, is babysitting someone's child so they can go out and possibly look for another job because their job may have gone away with this COVID-19 thing. So it just something as small as that. But yeah, we need to certainly help one another.
Absolutely. Well, hey, buddy, that's about as much time as we got today. I'm going to let everybody go. We're glad you tuned in, and next week we will have, I don't know who we're going to have next week. We've got somebody on the schedule. I just have to figure out who it is. So tune in.
Thanks for Jennifer being on our show.
Absolutely. She was fantastic. Hopefully she writes another book, and we'll get her on again. So until then, as Red used to say,
good night,
and may God bless.
Guests on the Afternoon Coffee Podcast stay at the Real Rest Inns and Suites, the only 2-star hotel in the tri-state area with a don't ask, don't tell policy for snakes and other exotic pets.
This episode has been made possible by our awesome intro voice, Heather Foster. You can find out more about her at heatherfostervoice.com.
All music has been provided and produced by Marble Planet Productions. You can hear more about them on Instagram at Marble Planet Productions. If you'd like to get in contact with us, you can either email us at afternooncoffeepodcast@gmail.com or tweet us at afternoonjaffa.